Welcome to Remarkable. We are broadcasting the stories and journeys of Sri Lankans driving technological innovation around the world. My name is Buddhima. I'm a technical product leader, co founder, and startup advisor based out of Austin, Texas.
Hi everyone, my name is Chalinder. I am based in the sunny shores of Sri Lanka. I'm in the venture capital space, investing in early stage technology startups across South Asia and Southeast Asia. And today we are joined by Harshani and Yashas, who's from Ticket Gadget. They're currently based in Australia, but they have their entire operations here in Sri Lanka. And Harshani, Yashas, welcome to Remarkable.
Harshini, I'll ask you first. How would you introduce yourself? What do you want people to know about you?
Okay, so I'm Harshini, the co-founder and CEO at Inqbaytor. So we are a travel tech startup, and as Shalinda mentioned, our main product is Ticket Gadget, which is now the largest travel consolidator in Sri Lanka. I am passionate about technology, and I like to make a change using technology. So that is what drives me every day.
Hi, I'm Yashas. I'm one of the co-founders and I'm the head of business development. It's starting something like even within the app, uh, the operation, we do a lot of changes every day. So every day is a challenge. So that's what keeps us going.
With that, guys, maybe I'll start with Harshini and Yashas. You can also add into this. Why don't you just kind of give us a small background into, how did you come up with this idea? What motivated you, to take this idea into reality? What was that early stage stuff, what that was running through your head? Not so much of what is happening now, but the initial stage.
So Incubator started as just a side hustle. So this was when I was actually reading for my PhD. So it started just as a side hustle, and frankly, we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We didn't know what was a startup. We didn't know, the stages of the startup, what it was to be an entrepreneur, what an MVP was. We didn't know any of this, right? So we had this idea saying, okay, we want to come up with a travel product, and we simply built another OTA. So that was the start. So with Incubator, our first product was a B2C called Crazy Jets.
So it started in 2014 and as a side hustle. And of all the things that you could have done, why did you pick, travel? What was so special about travel that you wanted to pick?
So we built the product. We were just copying what everyone else had, and we just get to it took too long because we didn't understand the importance of differentiating our product. We just wanted to perfect whatever was there, trying to copy what everyone else had, and took too long. So we didn't know what a minimal viable product was, right? We didn't understand the importance of knowing what customers wanted. We just came up with the requirement, we built it, we put it online and stayed until customers came to the platform. Nobody came to buy. You just don't know what you get yourself into. And also, both of us come from tech background. So I come from software engineering, and Yashas comes from systems engineering. So we are not from the travel industry. So first when we built the platform, we got access to the API, right? So we put bookings, we were able to issue tickets, but it's actually after we launched it, we realized that we can't actually issue tickets on our own. So there is this thing called an ITA accreditation that you need, that you actually need to function for some time, and then which is a very capital intensive accreditation to maintain. And also that you don't get access to all the inventories. You have to talk to airlines, get inventory, you need to get quota. So it was a big process. And we were not ready for any of this. And also as a startup, getting, I think, staff was one of the very hard things, getting talent, because we were not in the industry. So we didn't have friends, and nobody wanted to come and work for us. And that expertise, that the travel, from the travel side that we required, we didn't have it in house. So what we did was we did what we know best. We started automating these complex tasks. So back then, so we had this system in-house that we use, for example, the ticket issuance process. So the booking, all of this is straightforward, but when it comes to ticket issuance and the after sales part, like doing reissues, refunds, these are very complex things that needs that expertise. So later we started automating all of this because we didn't have the expertise to do it, and it was too expensive to have people with that expertise. And then later, but back then we didn't realize that we were actually building a foundation that is to a commercially viable solution that will disrupt the travel industry in Sri Lanka. Actually, yeah, because the product size was expensive, and we thought that there is a lot of money there, that we thought that it'll be very profitable, that it might be easier to keep markups. But later we realized that this wasn't true. But that's how it started.
Right. And if you talk about today, where are you as a company? If you can give us a high level kind of, matrices. So this was 2014. And if you were to give the top five or the top three KPIs or the matrices of where you are today, 6 plus, 9 almost 9 years later, what would those be?
So we've managed to become the largest travel consolidator in Sri Lanka. So the largest online travel company. And then in terms of revenue, now we generate over 1.5 billion monthly. So we have a active customer base about of 600. So this is B2B that we're talking about. So we have travel companies and corporates. And we are, I would say, the largest revenue generator for majority of the airlines now in Sri Lanka.
So you're telling us about where it started. So what did that change into, and where is it today in terms of your product and what it does for your customers, and also what's different about it now that you mentioned that initially you copied something that existed and then now you guys figured out how to not be that.
Yeah, so this the change happened during the pandemic, right? So when the borders started closing down, so we had to stop all of our operations. And the common advice that was going around during that time was to lay low and to increase your runway as much as possible. But as entrepreneurs, one thing that we had learned the hard way was not to do what everyone else was doing. So when everyone else was doing nothing, we started building a platform. We started commercializing that product that I told you about, the ticket issuance part, that process that Sri Lanka didn't have. Okay, so I'll just give you some context there. So there are actually two types of travel companies. There are companies with the IATA accreditation. So these agents can book and issue tickets both, whereas non-IATA agents can only place bookings. And to issue tickets, they have to, in Sri Lanka, you have to call or email a IATA agent and get that issued. So we also went through this process. It was it wasn't efficient, and sometimes you have to stay half a day to get your tickets issued, and tickets are time sensitive, and it wasn't practical. But we had that in-house solution. We thought, okay, let's just commercialize this. So we started working on Ticket Gadget. We launched the super app during the pandemic, and also doing this during the pandemic was not easy at all because VCs were not even willing to listen to a pitch related to travel, right? So it wasn't something anyone was willing to fund during that time. So it was something that we had to do on our own. Up to date, actually, we've been bootstrapping. We don't have any external investment. So to get that money during the pandemic, we had to use to get loans against our properties. And then once we had that sorted, things were going smoothly, but until money started running out again because the pandemic, lasted much longer than anyone anticipated. So then, so the founders of the company had to even take second jobs. It came to a point where we couldn't pay the salaries. We had to then service the loan. It was a very difficult time where we actually had to work about 20 hours a day. It was that difficult during that time. And I think it was just our gut feeling that kept us going because nobody else believed in us. Everybody wanted us to stop this and, get jobs. Saying that you have the education, why you're trying to do this, why you're trying to do your own thing, go and work. But we knew deep inside that this was going to make a change in Sri Lanka, that it's going to disrupt the travel industry. And then, so when the border started opening up, we started getting customers. And up to date, we haven't done any paid marketing. it has just been word of mouth. The product was that good, and we understood because we had done everything wrong before. So this time when we built our product, we knew what to focus on about differentiating our product. It's not just about selling cheap tickets. So we knew all of that. So then it ultimately grew to become the largest consolidator in Sri Lanka. So it was about understanding that opportunity even during a crisis.
In a sense, you guys found a gap in the market in terms of there's a definite problem, and then you just went after that and then found your customers once travel opened up again in Sri Lanka. And who would you say is your competition, if it's in Sri Lanka or wherever you're looking next? Like, how would you articulate that?
So in Sri Lanka, I would say that we don't have a direct competitor because we are a travel tech company, and most of the other companies that you see are traditional travel companies. And I think a lot of the time, even the traditional companies see us as a threat, as opposed to actually that we are making a change in the industry. We are giving that much needed technology, because when everyone else has these systems, we are just we still have to call our email to get our tickets issued. We have to be competing with the rest of the world, and it's something that they can embrace as well. And I would say, if you look at the competition, like the closest competition I see as of now is a company called Apple, but they're more focused on providing APIs as opposed to we are giving that super app that what the travel company needs, everything in one place. So we started as just a consolidated platform, which is the ticket issuance, but now it has actually changed. It's not just about ticket issuance. We enable all inventories, because there's something called the traditional way of distributing was something called a GDS. But now airlines during the pandemic, mostly during the pandemic, they started to pivot to what's called NDC. This is where there's no longer middleman, but you directly distribute your inventory to the travel company or the travel agent. But the problem with this is that the market is not ready for this. So there are two ways that you can distribute: using an API or using a portal. But if you go in Sri Lanka, what happened was all the airlines who went to NDC started giving their own portal. So which means that, say that a customer wants to get a quote, sorry, a travel agent wants to get a quote, they have to log into 20 portals to get the quote. It might be cheap, but it's not practical. Whereas because we have that technology, we integrate all the available inventories like the GDS or NDC and even direct inventory for low cost carriers. Everything is in one platform. So travel companies now, instead of having to go to different places to get their inventory, there it's more like a one-stop shop now using Ticket Gadget.
So is it fair to say similar to something like comparing to Expedia or kayak.com in that realm from those global companies, or is it slightly different?
No, it's a bit different now. So those are more like booking engines, and those are B2C platforms, and this is a B2B platform. So Ticket Gadgets, so travel companies and corporates, and this is more of the things that, for example, if it's a travel company, so for them to service the customer, they need to be able to issue a ticket or reissue a ticket or do the refund. So these are some things that happen in the back end. But what you need is you need that skill to be able to do it. Like even in Sri Lanka now, after the pandemic and the crisis, the economic crisis that we had, the brain drain, even for us, it's very difficult to find people in the industry. During the pandemic, a lot of people left the travel industry, and finding expertise has become very difficult. But with our platform, you don't need people with that expertise. So we've made it so easy that you no longer have to learn any of that. We have very user friendly interfaces. You can just do whatever you want using the app. So we want to make all these processes simple.
Imagine something like what ChatGPT has done to AI. Maybe that's how what you're doing for the travel industry, where you don't have to understand the jargon of how the system works, and you can just engage with it.
Especially on the product side, how complicated was that building that product? Because you're looking at the systems integration side of things. I'm assuming a lot of these, when you directly work with airlines, their systems are, how sophisticated are their systems for you to be able to kind of directly integrate? How was that journey?
What usually happens with an online travel companies, they just integrate a global distribution. What normal OTAs does is just connect one global distribution system. But so to answer Chalinda's question, what we do is we directly integrate. So depending on what core system they use, what every airline has a host system. It could be Altia or Mars or any host system. So basically, they usually have a XML based communications interface. Plus, and also with the recent stuff that's going on in the travel industry, could be the standard NDC protocol, XML schema. So if it's on NDC, it's easier because it's just a bit of schema changes from one provider to one airline to the other. But what we have done is we have independent APIs that talks to these airlines. So we fetch the data and convert into our format and push it to the customer. So even one airline is down or there's a delay or any issue, it's still we will still function because we have the individual connections to the airlines.
When a customer comes on, how does it work? Is it that you guys already have access to the airlines, or
So we do all the work in the background. We get everything going. The customer logs in. Customer wouldn't necessarily need to know where the inventory is coming from because we give the customer the complete end-to-end solution. Like the customer will only look at the price. So it could be Qatar Airways direct or Qatar Airways through a global distribution system. The customer wouldn't know just by looking at the content, and customer does not need to know because everything's on. Just click, click, click at the name, create the booking, issue the ticket, and they just have the booking and the ticket is issued then and there. So the customer really don't need to go through the pain of knowing where it's from or the rest of servicing or anything because we take care of all that.
And also, just to add to the point that Yashas was saying, we have also got rid of that headache of having to maintain your own accreditation. You have to maintain your own bank guarantee. So when we started, the market that we were looking at was non-IATA agents. But now we see that even IATA agents are actually moving to our platform because now they don't have to worry about maintaining their own accreditation or their own bank guarantees. It's hassle free, and also because we have incorporated a layer of security, because usually what happens is a travel agent, when they have ticketing authority, they have to give that ticketing authority based on the trust they have with the employees. Because you have a bank guarantee, say for 100 million, anybody who has access can issue the ticket. But whereas with our platform, you need to enter an OTP to be, so you have to be authorized to issue, and the owner, anybody who involves gets a push notification or the email notification. So because of that layer of security, convenience, all of that is there when they use our platform, and getting access to all the inventories like Yashas mentioned.
say I register a business, I want to open a travel agency, and I could just get the software from you guys, and I'm off to the races.
Correct. Yeah, like Uber for travel agents. Yeah.
In terms of, I know we talked about your customer, so it's a very loaded and very broad term, right? So how would you define your customer persona?
So when we first launched the platform, the customer base that we were looking at was travel agents who don't have IATA accreditation. So that was the market that we were looking at. And then eventually we even had IATA agents coming to our platform. And now we have also opened it up for corporates. So because big companies, they usually have a travel desk and they have an in-house person doing all of that. But even to do that, they have to call the travel the company and get the quotes. And so again, to get your tickets issued, you have to go through the travel agent. And another thing is that usually corporates, they get what's called a corporate code from an airline. And then, so if you want to get the price for that corporate code, again, you have to go to the travel agent. Whereas with our platform, we just configure that to their account so they can independently search, book, issue, do all of that using the platform. And another customer base that we didn't realize that was using our platform, that we didn't anticipate having on our platform, are actually airlines. Airlines are now using our platform to do the price comparisons. So that's quite interesting, something that we didn't realize. So what they do is, because otherwise if they have to do a price comparison, for example, it could be only GDS inventory. But with us, all the inventories are on our platform, so they do the comparisons. And when they want to promote special fairs, they promote that through our platform. So it's just not doing the advertising, because we have that big customer base with us, for them to move inventory through us has become very convenient. So that's a customer base that we didn't think of, but we earn back-end incentives, and also for promoting, for boosting the inventory. So that's another stream of revenue that we make, which we didn't actually think of when we launched the platform.
In that sense, so you have IATA agents, you have non-IATA agents, you have corporates, and then you have airlines. So you have these four types of customers. How many, I mean, it doesn't have to be accurate, but how many non-IATA agents, IATA agents, corporates, and airlines do you have in your platform right now? If you can throw some numbers around.
So yeah, I don't have the exact numbers, but I can tell you the majority is definitely non-IATA agents in terms of the distribution. So because that is what it was aimed for. So now we are onboarding corporates. So corporates is also a big base that we're hoping that we can. That's our main target for this year, having more corporates on our platform.
How do you acquire some of these customers? What's your strategy, what's your channel, and then what do you actually do? You have boots on the ground because you guys are in Australia. I know you have an operation here in Sri Lanka as well, but what does that acquisition channel looks like?
Actually, when it came to the travel companies, it just went like wildfire. To be honest, like with our experience with Crazy Jets, we used to put boosted posts, and we actually couldn't even be doing all that marketing. It's really hard to get a customer to your platform, but our experience with Ticket Gadget has been completely different. We didn't have a sales team, right? So it was just us sometimes having to talk to customers. Even that was for us to help them with the technology, because people come from non-tech backgrounds and they need the help to do the registration. These are not the non-tech savvy people, but majority of them, they would do the registration on their own. But we actually didn't have to do any of the marketing with Ticket Gadget. Uh, it was a completely new experience for us as well, not having to pay for any of the customers. Even now, our customer cost of acquiring the customer is almost zero. Because we didn't go into a price war, and it was completely because of that convenience. Customers, it was just, we have one travel agent, then they go and tell their friends. That's how it happened when it came to travel agents. So now we do have like a small sales team now. But again, I would say that the work that they're currently doing is not actually selling, but it's about, again, helping people with the registration and things like that they are actually working on. But with the corporates, we definitely have to go to corporates and do the selling. But in terms of travel agents, our experience was very different. We didn't have to do any of the marketing.
So sounds like there is pretty good stickiness in that sense. Are there any, do you know, like what the favorite features for these segments are? Like, is there one across all of them, or do they each have like a specific thing that they're like, yes, this is the main reason we use Ticket Gadget?
Definitely, it is a very, very sticky product. If they issue one ticket, what the experience that we have is that they will completely shift to our platform. So the ticket issuance part, as well as, like I said, having access to all inventories, getting rid of all that headache, and having everything in one place. And it's not just the main features. Now we are building other features that customers want. For example, doing those quotes. Usually, you need a separate system to do all of that, but now it's just a one click, and you can do your quotes for your customer. So everything that they want in one place, their invoicing, everything is now in one place. So I think that is what makes the product sticky. Having the super app, the idea of the super app, having everything in one place.
How do you learn from your customers? Do you spend time talking to them, probably looking at some data? Like, what is that world like? How are you learning and translating to your roadmap?
Okay, so at the start, because we didn't have a sales team, or actually during the pandemic, we only had 3 girls in our support center. We had one doing audit, and then it was the software team and us. Right, so our team even so when we hit our 1 billion, we only had 30 people in our team. So that is how efficient our system is. I think in a way, us not getting funded during that time sort of forced us to make our systems very efficient, even when it comes to server space or things like that. Because we didn't have the money to burn, so we had to make everything very efficient. So because of that, our cost was very low, and then even now our team is only a team of 45 now.
Digging a little deeper there, how do you guys make money today? And are you a profitable company?
Yes, we are now profitable. So most of the money. So before Ticket Gadget, this the consolidated business used to be a credit-driven business where you would charge one person to issue your tickets, but it means that the ITA agent has to take. They usually give credit to non-ITA agents, and they have to take that risk. But as a tech company, we are not in the business of giving credit. That we let the banks handle that. We give technology, we give the convenience. So instead of just trying to earn 1% from the customer, what we do is we look at scale, moving large amount of inventories, and we earn money from back-end incentives from airlines. So for moving large volumes. So instead of trying to earn 1% from the customer, we earn 5 or 10% from airlines as back-end incentives. So the main revenue streams are back-end incentives and subscriptions.
If you want to kind of introduce your team, I know you mentioned 45 people currently. uh, who are the co-founders? Obviously the two of you are the co-founders. What's your management team like? Who's how many in different departments, and what do they do?
Yes, so my responsibilities, I would say, so when it comes to, so because both of us come from the tech background, definitely both of us are very involved in the product development. Um, so when we divide the work, so it's sort of a strategy where we divide and conquer. So, like even the features of the system, if we have to do, we will say, okay, you handle this part, I handle this part. And we are very, very hands-on, up to date. So even if it's the development part or the quality assurance or the customer service or the auditing, because like I said, we didn't have money, doing, even when had to do artwork or whatever, we didn't have a graphic designer. So we had to learn and do it. The traveling, anything in the travel space, we would learn and do it. So we would, I would say, in terms of responsibilities, Yashas handles the part where he's the one who would talk with the airlines. He does that part, keeping those, so as a the head of the marketing part and talking to the stakeholders when it comes to the airline part of it. And I would do the managing part, keeping tab of the revenues that we're doing, overlooking the whole operation. Yeah, so majority of the team is the software team. So we have more people in the software team. So the software engineers, the quality assurance, that part. And then our customer service, we only have a few people. I would say about 10 to 15 in customer service. So this is also with the people who are doing, because we have a 24-hour roster. So these are people working on the 24/7 roster. And we only give, so what we do is, when it comes to maintaining, I would say, uh, because we've made the system very efficient, and we've sort of shifted that responsibility of customers having to do everything on their own. Like I said, we don't make any bookings, we don't issue. Whereas, a company doing 1.5 billion in revenue, the similar competition, when we have 30, they need about 300 people to run that same operation. So because of that, our when it comes to, so, and this is something we always keep in mind even when we are expanding. like the products that we maintain, sometimes there are products that we can make more profits, but moving on to those products would mean that we have to increase the number of heads. So that is something we always try not to do, because then we become another travel agent and our overheads increase, and then we can't run the operation as efficient as we are doing it now. So that's sort of key for us, always, handling products that we can scale only.
How did you guys meet and decide to work together?
So we were actually dating when we first launched Crazy Jets, and then I would say so we were always. Yashas, do you want to add something there?
I was not expecting this. Yeah, so anyway, I knew Harshani long before, so she's more like the go-to PHP person for me, because uh, I didn't know anything. My SQL was not my thing, so I was more into ASP, and the only DB that I knew was Access. That's horrible, slow. When we were having a chat, we were just talking about like $1,000 to go to Sri Lanka if it's 10% commission. That's $100 a ticket. So that's a lot of money that we can make. So that's how Crazy Jet's idea came, but it was never 10% to start. From the beginning, it was not 10%. That was just that's something that we thought.
Also, tell us a little bit about what's your day to day like as the leadership team, and then also what's it like for your teams.
The good thing is we like working. So because we are doing something that we like, so we usually do good 12 to 14, 16, about 14 hours of work. Anyway, it's mainly from home, so there's no commute or anything like that. And if we since we live in Sydney, we always have the preparation time for the day. So when if we start work at 8 o'clock, we have until about midday, about 4 to 5 hours to prepare for the day, so that when people come in, before they come in, we have all the reports that we can go through, what they've done during the week or the previous day. So yeah, so most of it is just looking at what they're doing and the numbers, and uh, whatever we can think of to improve the app and the updates, and how we move forward with the next releases and things like that.
Tell us a little bit about your team culture and or values that you guys follow as you work as a team and run your team.
So I would say we are a process-driven company. Uh, so everything from the start, from day one, something that we put in place was having a process for everything, even if it's something small, even when it comes to customer service or whatever it is. And we have what's called a checklist system, right? Because our team is very small, and at the start, a lot of turnover, because you're not a big company, you have a person working today, and tomorrow they don't turn up to work, right? So we, from the start, we knew the importance of having a process-driven company, and maybe Yashas, you can share how we came up with that idea of coming up with the process-driven, the checklist system.
Very quickly on that, Jasas, before you go now, the typical feedback that you get when you're in a startup is not to have processes, because startups are designed to be chaotic, and only mature companies have processes as you start growing. But you started off with processes from day one, so very interested to hear the story of this as well.
I used to work at McDonald's Rajagiri in Sri Lanka. So the first day when I got there, there's a guy who trains us. There's a checklist. Like even if you want to make a McChicken or a veggie burger, for the veggie burger there's a checklist. So if there's 10 milliliters of ketchup, then this much of onions, this much of this is the patty. The patty cooking time is there. So everything is there. So um, we did the same thing. So when you come to work, you first check your email. It's not like uh, rocket science, but it's just that there's a checklist for you to go through, and you do the same thing. So, but the good thing is the checklist is not on paper, so it's 100% dynamic. So, depending on your shift, you get your checklist. So today you might have a checklist with uh, checking whether the phones are working, the manager comes in, whether the internet's working, whether the backup internet is on. Like there's a million things, but everything is divided into depending on the time you start working, depending on your position, depending on the department you're in. So, and the main thing is the checklist is dynamic. So if we need to change something, it's fluid. We change it on the system. Next day, you get the new version of the checklist.
And also to add to your point, Shalinda, definitely it is chaotic and we have to pivot. We pivot every day. Like we maybe we plan for next week for this to go online, but that doesn't happen. We have to pivot every day, but whatever the processes that come underneath us, so when we allocate it, we make sure that it's in a way that we can monitor and make sure that it is completed.
So BHAG stands for Big Hairy Audacious Goal. Um, what's the what's this one thing that you really want to achieve?
In Sri Lanka, 35% market share. I don't think it's hard. We are going to get there. But Sri Lanka is a very small market. But what we want is to become a regional player. So Gulf, and Asia. So that's what we are heading towards.
What kind of timeline are you guys imagining?
In more like very infancy, where funding is required. External funding is definitely required because the capital injection that we require for the expansion is very high. Uh, Nothing to do with brick and mortar, but it's more of the initial capital requirement to start the business with the IATA accreditation is the killer. So the external funding is something that we are looking at very soon for specifically for this, for the Gulf region.
Shifting gears a little bit, what has it been like working with each other? What are the pros and cons of working with each other, and what has that been like?
Uh, so definitely, I think getting into a business together means that we have to pretty much spend the whole day with each other. Like guys, like for others, they would go to work, and you have that time away, and then you get back for. So for us, it's I think very important that we understand what we are working towards. I think having that vision that both of us are aligned and that we want to do this, and I think in a way for us it works better, and I think that given that some days we have to do, like Yasha said, 14, 16 hours. Maybe if it was another partner, it would have been able to do that sometimes in a way, because we've had to prioritize a lot of things. So even like for example, the time when we got married, it was based on the time that we can. It's not the day that we wanted to get married, but based on how we had to align it with the business plans, and we actually went to work the day after our wedding. That is how it has been for us.
And it was a public holiday.
Yeah, so we've had to make decisions like that, but it was very important that we have that understanding, and I think that success comes with that level of understanding that we have in terms of co-founders and as life partners both.
And Yashas, what are your thoughts?
Um, Never argue with Harshani about queries. Anything else is okay, but MySQL and SQL queries, never.
And in terms of facing biases. So this is a question we ask all the founders that we speak to, may it be gender, age, ethnicity, whatever it is. Have you guys faced any of that while building your company, and how have you worked through it, if any?
I think I would just share my side of the story. Like being a woman-led company, I think definitely getting that recognition from other parties sometimes is difficult. Sometimes even when we first start the conversations and going, like Yashas would usually introduce me as Dr. Pereira. He would just say that, and when they see us or see me, that's not what they expect. As when it comes to, I would say, new players in the market, for us, uh, at the start, even now, sometimes, there has been a lot of backlash and, people not understanding what we're doing. And especially when you are creating a disruptive product, you don't know what it's like to create a disruptive product until you actually build it. Everybody wants to create a disruptive product, but you don't really understand what comes with it because you're changing how things have been going all this time, and the whole industry will be against you. A lot of intimidation. There are powerful people in the industry, especially the industry that we are in, the travel industry, with a lot of money. And even up to date, there is a lot of intimidation. Like it has been a very difficult part, to be honest. But what keeps us going is that we know what we want to work towards. That vision that we have. And people, like even when Uber came, like if you remember, people, taxi drivers started beating up Uber drivers. But now today you can't find a person who doesn't have Uber app installed on their phone, right? So that's called the revolution, the disruption. So when it comes to developing disruptive products, it's something that we also didn't realize until we got there.
Have there been any kind of surprises or interesting things that you guys have learned on this journey?
There was this one investor who we were talking to last year. Uh, they think that we are their biggest competitor, and the awesome thing is he has Ticket Gadget on his phone. That's that's awesome.
Is there any more things that you might have learned?
Every day, like even when we push a uh, new feature out, there are times that we have to roll back because people don't understand. So there are things like that, or when we introduce something new, uh, it doesn't work because there's a bug that we never saw in the test environment. So
I think every day is a challenge, and every day you have to make a decision whether you're going to go ahead with that or to pivot.
What keeps you up at night? Like, what are your main concerns or things that you worry about?
are we going to run out of the bank guarantee that we have with IATA so that we stop trading? So that's a big problem that we had those days, because if we were in that margin, like are we if we are nearing that credit limit, actually we would just stay up and monitor and use a different form of payment so that we can continue, like a corporate credit card, or we just pay the credit card and do it manually sometimes. So actually, uh, this is really staying up and monitoring what's happening.
Yeah, so at the start, it was about, how am I going to survive? So you're sort of in a survival mode, right? At the start, how am I going to pay salaries? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? But after the launch of Ticket Gadget, our biggest fear is growing too big too fast, because it's a very capital intensive operation where so since Yasha's mentioned about the bank guarantee, I'll just explain the context of that. So usually the inventory that you get from the airline is dependent on the size of the bank guarantee that you have. You have to keep that with IATA. So the minute you run out of your bank guarantee, your operation stops. You no longer can issue tickets.
So, is that limit something you worry about today as well, or is there you found a resolution for it now?
There are days, especially when we have a long weekend, because although there are safe payments and all of that, there is a manual process. But if the banks are closed in Sri Lanka during the weekends, and if there's a long holiday, the payments don't get uploaded. So if it's a long weekend, we still can face that problem.
Yeah. Even this month, there's like a 4 day long weekend. But now the banks understand that we have money up front, so they are not scared of giving us an overdraft, or like getting an overdraft is not a problem anymore, because they know that we already have. Because since we don't give credit to our customers, so they know that there's no risk in giving us any a temporary overdraft. So what we would do is, like, on at the end of, right at the end of this month, there's two public holidays. So a day before that, we would just maybe get about 100 million overdraft, and so pay IATA. But back then, the banks didn't know us. They did, like, they didn't want to extend such thing to us. But now we can plan and do something about it.
Late sounds like a lot of late nights and long hours. So we like to say sometimes it's a sprint, sometimes it's a marathon. How do you guys take care of yourselves?
As of now, I think we probably don't do that. The focus has completely been uh, about the company, frankly. Sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you just have to make those decisions, uh, giving priority to company. I think especially during those initial stages.
Gym is something that will happen tomorrow, day after, every day. That's
We've been trying that for 1 year, but still haven't.
What's something that ideally from your younger days that really shaped you? And it could have been in school, it could have been something extracurricular activity that you did, whether it's through sports, and it can be both positive and negative as well, but something that really left a mark and an imprint that really changed and shaped you to the person or the people that you become today.
During this journey, one of the most important things for me is, I think, having that good education. Having I've always when I was in school, I was always the quiet one, right? You would not find me in going on stage and talking. I was never that person, but I would always focus on my studies, uh, and always work hard. And I used to always have short-term goals, right? So if it's my O-levels, I would say, okay, I need to get 8 A's, right? And then from there, so I don't come from a very, say, wealthy background, but I've always worked hard towards it. Like, for example, to do my A-levels, I got a full scholarship. So during that time, I actually, we had to do compulsory three subjects, and the fourth subject was not mandatory. So my subjects were maths, physics, accounting, and computing. So during this time, I actually didn't have internet at home or a computer, although I took this subject. And so when I was doing this, in school, I couldn't keep up with the others, because they give homework and all of that. So no internet. I actually dropped the subject, and I couldn't go ahead with that. But after that, from there, for my degree, but I still wanted to go down that path. So I made sure that I did that, and then after that, then I moved on to doing my bachelor's, and then from there, even my PhD. Right. So this was the first time. Uh, Even my first overseas trip was where it was granted after I sort of did this project for the company, and the term was like, you need to finish this, and then you can go on that trip. It was a company trip, and even my visit to Australia is a full scholarship for my PhD. So always have, my always that I've had that thing saying that, okay, if I have a goal, I will work towards it, even if whatever obstacles come our way. Even now, as an entrepreneur, a lot of people will tell you that you can't do it. And what I believe is that if I have that vision and I know I want to work towards it, I will prove everyone wrong. It's something that as an entrepreneur that you have to have, because if it was easy, everyone else would do it, right? And you just have to prove everyone wrong and say that, okay, it doesn't have to be that. I know that this is possible and I will do it.
when I was small. there was no such thing as dyslexia, or it was just I was called stupid because I couldn't read and write. So later I found out that when I was in uni and just about to get deported from Australia, I found out that I was dyslexic. So that's why I couldn't uh, read and write, as in like my peers, I couldn't read and write. So, but I could speak and understand. So that's when I was about 19 or 20, probably about 19 or 20. So until then, I didn't know why I was slow. So when I was small, when I was in school, it was difficult every day just to keep up with everyone else. So I didn't have any free handouts. Like uh, every day was a struggle. So pretty much that's how I was made.
What's a piece of content that has left a mark on you?
Okay, something recent that I can think of is, I would say, the Uber story, the movie about Uber, not movie, the TV series.
I watched it last night, so it's the same answer. Because the Uber story, uh, it the similarities, like certain things are very similar. Like when you get your first letter demand telling you to shut down, we got the same, and that's what keeps us going.
Validation.
What's something people don't know about you, get wrong about you, or surprised to find out about you?
My friends call me, like when there's something dodgy, they always call me and ask like, okay, I have this check, how to cash this. Like I wouldn't have a clue, but they still call me. I wouldn't know how to do it, but they still think that I can. They think I'm dodgy.
I would say being in tech, as a woman, people don't think that they don't expect you, especially as a software engineer, to have a software engineering background. When I say that I come from a software engineering background, people often are surprised because it's not something, you don't see much people, women in tech. I think that's something that I've faced most of the time. So even if you're in tech, I remember when I first started working as a software engineer, I had people joking, saying, "What's wrong with you?"
How would your critics describe you, and how would your supporters describe you?
Airlines, like certain airlines, they call me too smart, like trying to be too smart, like because when they put some sort of restraint on you, you try to find a different loophole to get through that.
For me, I would say that a lot of people, I will also align that to the industries, thinking that we are destroying the industry, whereas we are not. They see us as a threat, and that we're doing something that we shouldn't be doing, whereas we're doing the complete opposite, bringing in the much needed technology.
Do you guys get a chance to kind of convert some of those people, or is it more of over time they eventually see the light? Or
Definitely we have, because most of the time what happens is that they hear a story from somewhere else, and then when they really get to know the story of what we are doing and how we became. And one of the reasons that we had to, actually, we even had a launch event, even Shalinda was a part of that event, was to sort of explain what we have been doing, what the company is about. And because it was out of nowhere, where we were doing about, I would say 50 million revenue a month to more than 1 billion. Like, people didn't understand, and people couldn't wrap their head around how that suddenly happened. And the first thing that comes to people's head is that, okay, something dodgy is happening, but it's not that. It's a scalable product, and it's not something that, they might think, okay, during the pandemic we came up with this product, but it was actually a product that we had for a long time. It didn't come out of nowhere. It was something that we were working on for a long time, but we didn't really see the commercial value of that. But when people get to know us, and if we get that chance to convince them, I think we have definitely been able to convince. But there are some people who don't want to accept the truth, especially when it's a direct competitor, and that we completely understand. But uh, like our experience, even we've had smear campaigns going in the industry. That is how bad it has got for us.
what are your final thoughts you wish to share on this platform? Anything that we can help you with, or anybody who's listening this, if they want to help you, how can they help you, and how can we be of an assistance to your journey and kind of add fuel to the fire that you've already kind of started?
My thoughts about our whole journey is that, uh, becoming an entrepreneur is, especially in Sri Lanka, is not an option that you are given as a kid. Nobody even tells you that this is an option. You're always told to get that education, get a good job. But creating your own thing, there is some sort of satisfaction that you can't get out of doing a job. I've gone through both, but it's not for everyone, definitely, because it's definitely not going to be a 9 to 5. And you need to really have that entrepreneurial mindset to go there. You need to be able to take the risk to be able to be a good entrepreneur, to make those decisions. And you have to be able to take up challenges and pivot anytime you want. So, as an entrepreneur, I think that's one of the key things that we have learned the hard way. And in terms of our next steps, is that what we're looking at is expanding to other regions. And all this time we have been bootstrapping. And one of the things that we are working towards is raising outside capital now. So that's something that we currently, I think, need help with, are looking out for. And even when raising funds, so for us, raising funds, not raising funds at one stage of the as at the initial stages, as of now, I we look at it as, actually, as entrepreneurs, something that we always do is that for you to always think of the positive side. You don't get funded, it's okay, this happened for this reason, I will still make it happen. Trying to look at the bright side of things. And so raising capital is also something that we are looking at, and something we need help with. But definitely it has to be an investor who's at the same wavelength as us, not just with money, but who actually understands what it takes and what we are sort of working towards.
Thank you so much for joining and for sharing your insights and your remarkable journey over the last almost a decade now, if you really look at it from the Crazy Jets standpoint, which has now kind of evolved into something completely different. But 10 years is a long, long time. And that's what they say, overnight success takes a decade. So kudos to you too, and the rest of the 45 people at Ticket Gadgets for really pushing through all the obstacles that have kind of come your way in multiple forms, right? Kudos for you guys for not really backing down and pushing through. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having us today.